Hello, I'm Elisabet Rasch and I work as an associate professor at the Sociology of Development and Change group at Wageningen University. In this film clip, I will give you a preview of what it's like to study international development studies at Wageningen University. I will do so by way of a mini lecture called A Just Energy Transition for Everyone. This lecture is part of a course that I teach called Property Rights, Natural Resources and Conflict. Before I go on to give my mini lecture, I will first provide you with some basic information about the International Studies program. This is a study program that takes 2 years and it focuses on worldwide social transformation processes related to livelihoods, agro-food networks and the environment. We dive into topics like migration, disasters, environmental policy, food security, natural resource conflicts and much more. Because of the complexity of all these themes, we look at them from an interdisciplinary perspective. We do so in some common courses, which you all will follow. In addition to that, you choose your own specialization. In a sociology specialization, we look at responses to social transformation processes from a sociological and anthropological perspective. If you're more interested in economic development and evidence-driven policy making, you can choose the economic specialization. In a specialization in politics and governance, we focus more on legal pluralism, international relations, and political anthropology. And finally, in the communication, innovation, and technology specialization, we explore how communication and how science technology interactions relate to social transformation processes. One of the courses that you can follow is the course Property Rights, Natural Resources and Conflict. In this course, my colleague Dick and I, we take natural resources as a lens through which we look at property rights on the one hand and a conflict on the other hand. These can be forest, water, subsoil resources as gas or oil, all the resources that you can think of. We then focus on basically 2 pillars. The first pillar is it relates to resource management and how people contest the governance of local resources from a legal anthropology perspective. And the other pillar is about violence, gender and social mobilization in natural resource conflicts. We use different teaching methods in the course. We give lectures. Dick and I, we both give I think 4 lectures, but we also invite guest lecturers that share their experience from working in a field with property rights or conflicts to share their experiences with our students. During tutorials, students are in the lead, they chair the tutorials, they also prepare them in terms of content and form of discussion. And during peer review sessions, students read each other's papers and comment on each other and give each other feedback. And finally, we have the literature study, which students use to prepare themselves for the exam. In all these different teaching methods, we really try to balance theory and case studies. So we try to give the broader picture, but also to dive into very specific cases to really show how it works on the ground. One of the lectures that I teach in this course is called, I said it before, A Just Energy Transitions for Everyone. In this lecture, I basically seek to answer the question, who is paying for our energy transition? I do so by unraveling the wind energy supply chain, and I try to detect the conflict nodes that we encounter on that chain. So the point I want to make in this lecture is that the energy transition is so much more than just a technological fix. It's so much more than a swap to another technology. It's a social, multi-layered, political, and at times very violent process. And I want to underline that this does not mean that I have my doubts about the energy transition. No, the energy transition has to happen. It's very important. But to make the energy transition inclusive, we need to analyze these different nodes of conflicts where possibly new categories of exclusion can come into existence. We use energy justice to analyze this renewable energy chain, and because energy justice as a concept gives us the possibility to ask questions about the social dimensions of the energy transition, it opens up avenues to ask questions that go beyond technology, that go beyond this idea of a technological fix. Energy justice as a concept interrogates the relation between energy issues and marginalization. It looks into how energy consumption and production relate to social inequalities. So with a concept like energy justice, we can ask questions. How are the negative consequences of the energy transition distributed? Can people participate in decision-making processes that are linked to the energy transition? Do they feel represented by the people that actually make decisions about the energy transitions? These are all questions that we can answer with the help of the energy justice concept. So as I said before, I will now briefly discuss some conflict nodes that we can encounter in this renewable energy supply chain. The first conflict node that we can find is the conflict node of the metals and the minerals that are extracted in order to build the wind turbines. So the wind turbines that you see when you cycle outside or when you walk along the beach, these wind turbines are constructed with metals and minerals that are extracted from many other places. Many other places, like Chile or other Latin American countries or countries in Africa, where they do not have access to wind energy themselves. So we extract these metals and minerals, nickel, copper, rare earth minerals from these countries to use for our own energy transition. In addition, the extractions of these metals and minerals can cause large environmental conflicts in the places where they are extracted. For example, and this is just one example of many other conflicts of this kind, is this conflict in Guatemala, in a small community called Estor, where a nickel mine started extracting nickel, one of the metals that we need for the wind turbines, without consulting the population that live there. The people that live there, actually, they depend on the natural resources for making their livelihood, for sustaining in their livelihoods. And they already face environmental degradation, water pollution, and the like. But they are also a conflicted community, because the mining companies have created people that are pro-mining and against mining. And in addition, people that protest against the mine often face violence and human rights violations. This is just one example. So when we look further on the energy supply chain, we, for example, see wind farms. Wind farms are also the source of many social environmental conflicts, because people fear the noise, but also the consequences for the flora and the fauna and the landscape pollution. So they have organized against wind farms all over the world, not only in Drenthe or in other places that we Dutch people might know, or that you might know from other countries, but all over the world, from Mexico to Chile to Guatemala, Latin America, I know best. The same goes for energy transport. People fear the health consequences of the large voltage cable or the high voltage cable that will run through their lands. They fear the consequences of the big pylons that will be constructed, all needed to transport the energy. The final conflict node, or possible conflict node, that I will discuss is the energy storage. Energy storage, we need it because wind and sun are not regular energy suppliers. So we have to store the surplus of energy that they produce, and we have store them in batteries. And these batteries, they have to be somewhere. And often they are close to, planned to be close to communities where people live. And for example, here is a conflict in Ireland. Here I witnessed how a community organized against the battery close to their community because they feared water pollution, explosions, fire, health issues, but also because they had not been consulted. They felt excluded from the political process, from the decision-making process. But there's more to it because these batteries, they have to be made, and they are made of stuff that is extracted from other places. One of them is lithium. Lithium comes from many different places, but also from the lithium triangle in Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, and can possibly also cause a social-environmental conflict in this region. Cobalt mainly is extracted from DRC, and its extraction involves a lot of child labor, violence, and is therefore known as a conflict mineral. So these were just a few conflict nodes that I have now discussed. I'm sure there are many, many, many more, and all of them could be discussed in way more in depth. But I think this already gives a glimpse of how the energy transition is more than a technological fix, more than a swap in technologies, but it is a social, political, and at times violent process. So, to sum up this whole film clip, to reflect a little bit back, we have seen that the 2-year master program of International Development Studies focuses on social transformation processes all over the world, and we then zoomed in on a specific course that is part of this program. It's called Property Rights and Natural Resources and Conflicts. In this course, we zoom in on the social transformations that are related to natural resources. And then finally, I zoomed in on the social processes that are produced and reproduced and created as part of the energy transition. If you want to know more about such issues, please consult our website or write an email to one of our study advisors. Thank you so much.